Circle Sanctuary, one of the oldest nature spirituality churches in the United States, connecting people of nature-centered paths around the world. Join us through the week for a variety of shows discussing various topics, celebrating the divine in all of its forms through nature worship, rituals, education, and building bridges of community.
Unmuted.
Welcome to Nature Spirituality with Selena Fox. This is Selena Fox, and I'm coming to you via CSNP, Circle Sanctuary Network podcast, which is Circle Sanctuary's internet radio network. And you can find out more about that at circlesanctuary.org and CSN Podcasts on Facebook. And I'm also coming to you via live stream on my main Facebook page, Selena Fox Update. Tonight, we celebrate and explore spring rituals. And I'd like to begin with a chant as we gather here. And I welcome all who are joining live and all of you who will join later. Powers of springtime, inspire us. Powers of springtime, refresh us. Powers of springtime, transform us. Powers of springtime, renew us. Spring rituals had been part of human experiences since the earliest of times. How do we know that? Well, some of the old sacred sites, in particular earthworks and stone circles, standing stones, have alignments that let us know that ancient ones tracked the movement of the sun at solstices and equinoxes. And spring rituals begin with the emergence of spring, the official start of spring, spring equinox, and culminate with summer solstice. Some of us are celebrating multiple sacred days and nights during this time, in addition to spring equinox, also known as Ostara. Some of us also celebrate some other spring festivals. I have some Irish, Celtic ancestry as part of my mix, and what I call Irish Culture Day, others call St. Paddy's Day, I see as part of that beginning of the spring season, and traditions of wearing the green or something not only connected with spring equinox and St. Paddy's Day, regardless of what your ancestral heritage is, it's actually been linked in with the greening of the land. And at the midpoint of the spring season, Beltane, the greening, that's connected with the realm of nature spirits, the fae folk, the fairy realm. In April, on and near the 22nd, is Earth Day. Some celebrate it as an early Beltane, but the color green is part of that holiday too. Green in this sense, the greening of life. So one powerful spring ritual that you can do for all of these holidays is to wear the green, to literally experience yourself resonating with the greening of life all around you. Now, in the springtime, there are also full moons. And in the Circle Sanctuary community, we have springtime themes connected with our springtime full moons. In 2021, when I'm doing this podcast, just a few nights ago, we had our spring renewal full moon circle. We celebrated the full moon, we celebrated spring with poetry and music, with meditation, all part of our ritual. And those who would like more information and to actually watch our spring renewal ritual, I invite you to go to the Circle Sanctuary YouTube channel, and you will be able to connect with that hour-long ritual with members of our Circle Sanctuary community. I like working with ritual chants, not only for celebrating spring, but for celebrating all the seasons and the moons. And on my YouTube channel, Selena Fox YouTube channel, I've begun putting chants that I've created for my personal use and for community use on that channel. In addition to celebrating the full moons, the beginning of spring, Ostara, spring equinox, and the midpoint, Beltane, May Eve, May Day, those are all part of it. Well, we have Mother's Day, and that's pretty linked with Beltane as well, although it came into being as a totally separate holiday. The idea of celebrating the Queen of the May, Mother Earth and the blossoming time, is something also quite ancient, and in the U.S., the second Sunday of May is Mother's Day. Another time of celebration is Easter. Now, Easter gets its name from Ostara, according to many. Ostra, in fact, Ostara, goddess of spring and dawn, dating back to the pagan Saxons of Germany, was honored in pagan times, and then her name got transported into the English name for Easter, the Christian celebration. Well, many say that also getting imported is the Ostara rabbit or hare. Now, there's some debate about that, but regardless, the Easter bunny, the Ostara hare, it's not only part of traditions connected with Easter celebrated by Christians, but Easter itself has become a secular community holiday as well, with egg hunts and Easter bunnies and all manner of frolicking and bringing in the spring. And of course, eggs, egg rituals, eggs for feasting, egg games, egg divination. These are things that pagans have as part of their Ostara celebrations, and many pagans, myself included, continue to welcome in the spring with Easter in a more universal way. What are some other holidays that are celebrated in the spring across cultures? The Persian New Year is spring equinox. Nowruz is its name, goes on for multiple days, and for those of Jewish heritage, there is Passover. So one of the things that I find fascinating with these different forms of spring holidays across religious and cultural traditions, the idea of new life, of rebirth, of resurrection is woven into them all. So if you're going to be creating spring rituals for your personal practice, your household practice, your small group practice, your community practice. There is rich folklore and folk ways to do the celebration. A number of years ago, I was interviewed for some national media, and actually it was international as well, and asked, well, what do you do to welcome in spring? So I'm going to share with you another chant which has key words that pertain to ways that you can create spring rituals. And there's an article with the International Business Times from a few years back. Decorate, meditate, renovate, invigorate, innovate, communicate, celebrate. So we're going to take a look at each of these terms. And as we begin with decorate, well, that's one of the easiest rituals to do. Now, one of the things I like to do is go out into the natural environment and to look for signs of spring. And if it's appropriate, depending on where I am and how I'm able to connect, I not only take pictures of signs of spring, but if I'm able, I endeavor to take a representation of signs of spring into my spring celebrations to decorate my home. So I was over at Circle Sanctuary Nature Preserve a few days ago, and lo and behold, a sign of spring, a sure sign of spring was there. Pussy willows, and I have my pussy willow wands here as part of my celebration. I also like to go into my garden and look for new life coming up, and I found a motherwort plant that is doing well. And I dug it up so I can transplant it or gift it to someone. And motherwort is a hardy perennial. It's connected with tonics, and some people use it for herbal healing and well-being. It's a bit of a bitter herb, but it's really a wonderful herb. And I use its leaves in rites of passage for blessing mothers-to-be. And you might find that some plants are up and ready to be picked and incorporated into salads, and as well as being able to be used as decorations. This morning I found chives starting to pop up in the garden and was able to go out and harvest them. When I do harvesting in the spring with the early greens that are coming up, I spend a few moments before doing the harvest and actually connect with the land, connect with the plant, and give thanks for this sign of new life. Tune into the essence of the plant, or some people would call it the spirit of the plant, and invite it to guide me in terms of my harvest activity and after harvest giving thanks. Well, one of the great things about chives, they like to be cut and will spring up some more, and really healthy plants. So what else to do for decorating your home? One of my favorite rituals is cleaning the threshold of my house. And after I've done that, my main front door, I clean the actual threshold piece and the front door. I'll put on a wreath. And I have a much bigger wreath on my front door, but this is an example of a small wreath. Now you can create wreaths yourself. That can be its own kind of decoration spring ritual. Or you can get some that are what I call the symbolic flower wreaths, ones that are going to last. They're made of various materials, silk flowers, other kinds of things. And I like working with both types of materials, things that will last. And I have some plants right here, and as well as actual flowers. So being able to bring some cut flowers into the house. Now, some of you may live in places where the blooming time is happening right now, and you're able to go gather fresh blooms. I'm up in South Central Wisconsin, USA, and yes, we're starting to have the grass turn green, and we're having some herbs starting to pop up. But it's going to be a while before we get those spring ephemerals in the woods and actually get full blooms. We'll hopefully get some dandelions and some marshmallow marigolds and tulips up in a few weeks. So it depends on where you are as to how you may want to decorate. In addition to doing decoration rituals and actually creating signs of spring in your own home, it's really a powerful thing to do a home blessing connected with that. So literally, you are decorating the home for spring, and as you do so, you reinforce the well-being and protection of your own home. Meditate. Well, one of my favorite ways of having spring rituals is to do some form of meditation. Going for a walk in a natural place. It might be a park if you're in an urban area. It might be in your neighborhood if you have gardens and trees and other natural vegetation where you are, or if you're living in a rural area such as I am. I not only go for walks out on the countryside, but one of my favorite things to do is to drive around and see what's happening to the land. So in a way, it's a moving meditation. But there are meditations that you can do as part of ritual practice, and I'd like to guide you in one right now. If you're in a place where you're able to sit comfortably and remove distractions and spend a few moments, I invite you to take some deep, slow breaths, closing your eyes, calling to mind an image of a cocoon that creatures make as part of their transition into being a butterfly. So imagine yourself being in a cocoon, and as you do so, call to mind something within yourself that you would like to express, that you would like to birth as you go into the springtime. And then spend a few moments holding that intention and feeling yourself in a transforming space. A cocoon is a chrysalis. The chrysalis is a container for inner transformation. And experience that intention within you. And then as it grows stronger, experience yourself starting to manifest it, to move free from this chrysalis, this cocoon, being a butterfly, stretching out your wings and flying and being that which you seek to manifest. This is a short meditation imagery work. If you want the full transcript, you can go to the Circle Sanctuary website, www.circlesanctuary.org, and go to my online guide for celebrating the seasons and look under spring equinox, and you will find a variety of meditations, including that one. And so as you experience that butterfly image within yourself, you can work with that image in other rituals. You can use it as a focus, and you may have some other imagery come to you as you do spring meditations of various types as part of spring rituals. When you have guidance come to you, it's good to write it down if you are able, or speak into a smartphone with a voice memo app. Give it some kind of form. Now, there have been some studies that have found that if you do kind of the old school handwrite it out in a journal, it tends to be remembered and becomes more of your conscious memory that way. But giving it some kind of form is good. It not only reinforces your memory of it, but it gives you the opportunity to go back and reflect on it and to be able to cycle it again into other things that you might be doing. So what are some other meditations that you might do as spring rituals? One of my favorite meditations is to go out at twilight and go into a natural area and to focus on the budding trees and shrubbery and the greens. To just be present with it. To feel part of the life rising forth. Some of us work with intuition and what some call psychic perception or intuitive perception in a variety of ways. When I teach that pre-pandemic, and hopefully at some point we will be post-pandemic and can gather again, I've taken groups out, classes and full moon circles and workshops out on Circle Sanctuary land, and we've looked at the hills and they literally glow. Letting yourself experience that life force, not only in an energetic way that you sense internally, but letting your eyes be in a kind of soft focus. And some people would call this viewing auric energy. And whether that is a particular perception you seek to cultivate, or maybe you already have it or not, being out in the springtime, not only seeing the beauty of spring coming on, but sensing it, noticing spring with all your perceptions, smells and touch and sounds. Another one of my spring rituals is to go to the wetlands at Circle Sanctuary. And the wetlands are full of all sorts of life. I was there yesterday and got to hear the spring peepers, the chorus frogs, and a variety of other creatures. And there's been opportunities at some of our gatherings in the past where a group of several dozen of us have just stood around the wetland, and the sound of the peepers has been so magical and loud. It became its own kind of meditation ritual on spring, to actually be present and to just be one with the sounds. Another meditation is something that is done in a number of cultures and places. It's taking in blossoms. And I first learned about the idea of going out and being with cherry blossoms in the spring. As I was growing up in the Washington, D.C. area, my great-grandfather was part of a group of people working with the new U.S. Department of Agriculture that helped bring in cherry trees from Japan. It was a gift of friendship and exchange. And at the 100th anniversary of that gift, a few years back, I happened to be in the Washington, D.C. area, and to actually be out with hundreds of cherry trees in bloom and with thousands of people being amongst the blossoms in the day and in the night was its own kind of powerful social spring ritual. In parts of Japan, as the cherry blossoms come on, it's part of news reports, and certainly taking in the blossoms is something that's not only part of that culture, but many people naturally do it and don't even realize it's actually a religious ritual for some people and a cultural tradition. In addition to these forms of meditation, being able to go into a natural place and sit and just be present and to experience spring around you is powerful. We're here in 2021, still in a pandemic, and not everyone is able to do that. So how else can you do a meditation? Well, you can find imagery online, and you can tune in to Spring Ritual podcast and live streams such as this as another way of making that connection. Part of the reason for having some flowers, not only for decoration, but for meditation. Another wonderful spring meditation is to actually call to mind a favorite type of flower. And we'll do just a short version of it here. Imagine yourself being that flower before it's fully bloomed. See what flower comes to you that you'll focus on. Is it a rose, a violet, a chrysanthemum? So many different kinds of flowers, but let a flower come to you. And then experience yourself attuning to that flower in its early stage of blooming. Be the flower. Experience yourself one with that flower. Imagine sunshine upon you. Connect with the moisture of sacred water, the warmth of sacred air, the power of the sacred land and earth, and the sacred spirit of spring. And as you continue to align with the flower, experience yourself opening up and blooming, being beautiful, letting your own essence come forth. Be with that for a few moments. And then invite that flower that you're resonating with to bring a word or a phrase to you to continue your meditation with. And give thanks to the flower. And make a note of your experiences. So what can you do with that meditation? By identifying with a form of life in that way, it helps you get out of what I call human-centric consciousness. Humanizing ourselves, this is part of our way of being. But through spring meditations, we not only can tune into our human part of self, but we can go deep into our own psyche and connect with that part of ourselves that connects with all of nature. And as we learn to be present with that in the present moment and really attuning to that interconnecting flow of life, that can take us into what some people call peak experience or blissful consciousness. One of my favorite thinkers and writers about consciousness, Joseph Campbell. And though he's no longer alive with us, he lives on in his works, The Powers of Myth. Follow your bliss, one of his favorite expressions. And that's a great thing to have year-round, but especially in the springtime. So in addition to different types of meditation, we also look at renovate. So springtime is a good time to make some changes, renovation. And indeed, one form of spring ritual, which is worldwide and across the generations, is spring cleaning. So part of spring cleaning is not only getting rid of what you don't need, dispelling dirt and grime, dispelling clutter, but it's repatterning. It's letting some new ways of being coming. Now, there is a lot of different ways to renovate. You might want to look at all the apps on a smartphone, if that's, or one of your other mobile devices, and go, okay, which ones am I keeping and which ones are going away? Or you might find a corner in your home that you might want to rearrange and to clean. Some people go after their closets or their garage. I mean, it can take a lot of different ways. But part of renovation is purification and really allowing patterns to shift into a new way. Some people actually will not only make changes in their home space, but in lifestyle patterning. So renovation is something that is powerful any time of year, but especially in the springtime. Invigorate. So how do you invigorate as a spring ritual? Well, make an herbal tea from those fresh greens and drink it. Spring tonics are really powerful. I love going out and getting fresh lemon balm leaves, Melissa officinalis. And while I drink lemon balm tea year round, having those first shoots coming up, really powerful. Nettles, another wonderful herb that can be put into salads. Yes, stinging nettles, if they're fresh, you need to use some gloves. Most people get a little bit of stinging from the nettles. Once they are steamed or they're dried, the stingers go away. A very wonderful green to add to your diet. In fact, this past growing season, my husband and I did a whole lot of nettles harvesting, dried it, and then I grinded it up, powdered it, and we've been using it all winter long and adding it to various dishes as a way of having that vitality throughout the year. Spring greens, you may have heard that, and there is a special color known as spring green, the very early greening of trees and bushes and plants and beautiful colors. This is one of my favorite spring green colors, a bright green, a fresh green. Invigorate. And you may take a look at something you might add to your diet to give you new energy and to perk you up. Certainly hydrating. Some people like to take water and to energize it in a spring ritual, and to put intention, to put blessings in it, and then to drink it. I have some water in my Green Man mug, a wonderful ritual in itself. And you can use a kind of mindfulness, a real attunement to taking in water, hydrating yourself as another way of invigorating yourself. And if you are in a place where you can get ginseng root, actual either dry ginseng root or fresh ginseng root, some people find, especially in the springtime, chewing on a bit of ginseng root or making a tincture if actually gnarling on the root is a little bit too intense for you. Another way of having tonic as part of a spring ritual. Innovate. Innovate. Well, renovate, you're changing things around. Innovate, you're trying something new. Many years ago, I did what I call the new growth divination ritual. Take a hard-boiled egg, such as this one, and with a crayon or a marker, divide it into 4 different panels. Put a little circle on the top, little circle on the bottom, and then I think of 4 things that I might try in the spring season. I give them each a symbol, or you might just use an abbreviation, the first letter. Make a list of what the 4 things are and how you're symbolizing them. Put them on your egg, and then what do? A divination ritual, a new growth divination ritual. Go to a place, ideally outdoors, though we've done them indoors at Circle Sanctuary Nature Preserve in pre-pandemic time, often in connection with our Welcome Spring ceremony. We're in Wisconsin, it can snow. So one year when we had a foot of snow, we had our Welcome Spring ceremony indoors and did our new growth divination ritual indoors. So we actually rolled it on a rug inside our big temple room. You'll see where the egg lands and look at that symbol, and that is a sign of which of those 4 things you've thought about as innovations for yourself, some new growth to try. I also have that ritual at my Celebrating the Seasons section. It's a free online guide. I add to it every so often. It's up at the Circle Sanctuary website. So, what else to do for innovation? Give yourself time to get inspired. And if you may want to combine some of these other rituals and customs with the innovation. Indeed, some find after doing some type of spring meditation, sitting or walking, having a journal or a means for noting down input, some inspiration may come to you. You may want to do dream divination as part of spring rituals. Before going to bed, having a journal and pen next to your bedside, and as you drop off to sleep, giving yourself suggestion that you call for guidance for the spring, for innovation, and that you will sleep well, you will have guidance come to you in the dream, you will remember the dream, you will work with the dream upon awaking, and then going off to sleep. Well, when you wake up, Jot down whatever comes to you. If you don't remember a dream, just let yourself journal a bit. Sometimes things are there, you just don't have them quite conscious at that point. And sometimes the act of dream divination happens the first night you try. Sometimes you need to do it for a couple nights in a row. So that is another way of looking at innovation. And of course, divination as part of a way of innovation is a wonderful thing. You may want to consult oracle cards, tarot cards, the runes, or you may want to scry or do some other personal divination work to help guide you in ways to grow in the spring. Communicate. I think being able to wish others happy spring is a powerful way to deepen our connections with each other. And yes, if you're in a situation where you aren't having a lot of face-to-face contact with people in person, there is social media. And there's the old school method of sending notes in the mail or calling up on the phone. There's many ways to wish happy spring. The actual calling out of happy spring throughout the spring season is a ritual in of itself, and having the joy come through with your voice not only is good for you, transmitting that joy and that spring awareness, but most likely it will be well received for others that you interface with. And celebration. Springtime has been connected with revelry since the most ancient of time. Rites of spring of many types, and going into the flowering time and the dancing of the maple and the jumping of the Beltane fire, the taking on of new clothes and new ways of being, feasting, celebrating, making merry. What a wonderful way to move yourself into the springtime. So in addition to some of these ritual methods and customs, I'd like to share with you some more spring rituals. Let's take a look, a deeper dive into spring cleaning. So spring cleaning may take the very practical piece of cleansing your dwelling space. If you're a gardener, whether it's container gardening inside your home, or you have a small garden or a big garden, or maybe you farm outside, preparing the soil, cutting away of the dead wood, raking away leaves, that's a kind of spring cleaning. And one of the powerful things about doing gardening work and preparing for the growing season, in a way, it's a ritual for life. Clipping away the dead wood to make room for new growth. And certainly one of the things that I've recommended, I do some psychotherapy and counseling with some clients via phone, via Zoom, and those who are struggling with challenges, a therapeutic thing that's worked for many people is to actually do some cleansing, and the act of cleansing, physical cleansing, can coincide with letting go of barriers to growth, to really move through issues. So it can be therapeutic on a psychological way as well as physical cleansing as well. Another favorite spring ritual is to open the windows and doors of my home. Prop them open and let spring air come flowing through. Doing a home blessing. at spring equinox time, at one of the spring full moons or dark moons or new moons, at Beltane time, a powerful way of bringing new life and repatterning to your home, your space, and to yourself. And taking on some new clothing. Something you don't have to spend a lot of money on. You don't, you might have something that you've had in your closet for a long time and decide to use it again. Taking on new clothes is a very, very old spring custom. As I grew up in the 1950s in America, we had the whole idea of taking on some new Easter outfit and an Easter bonnet. Well, there is even a classic movie called The Easter Parade, and certainly those are from a earlier era, going back 70-some years, but some of those traditions really have their roots in the ancient pagan past, where people would literally take on some new garment to represent the new life that's on the planet during the springtime. So that can be a really powerful spring ritual. Working with the divine in one or more springtime forms. And it depends on your tradition and what forms of the divine that you're aligned with. If you're connecting with the elements of nature, connect with the fertile earth. Call on the sacred earth as earth that is fertile, that nurtures plants. The sacred air, certainly pollination, the breezes, part of the secrets to new life. The waxing light of the sun. The days are getting longer. The warmth of the sun, sacred fire, water, nurturing rains, moisture in the air, the waters, and the spirit of spring. And of course, I created a chant for this way of welcoming spring. We honor the fertile earth. We honor the warming breezes. We honor the waxing light. We honor the nurturing rain. Welcome spring, new life you bring to us, to land, to all. Welcome spring, rebirth we sing within and round us all. A way to connect with the sacred elements, and a way it is a ritual in of itself. I today just loaded that up on my Selena Fox YouTube channel, so if you're interested in learning that chant, I not only will have it archived here as part of this on my Facebook page, but it's on YouTube as well. And you might have some other chant that you do as a kind of affirmation as you begin each day of the springtime. New life around me, new life within me, new life around me, new life within me. Or if you're in a household and you're chanting this together as you rise up in the morning, or maybe this is a midday chant, or maybe it is sunset. New life around us, new life within us, new life around us, new life within us. And the act of chanting in unison, of affirming this, is a way of strengthening that within your being. For those of you who are joining in on this live stream, I invite you, if you haven't already done so, to share a spring ritual that's special to you? Is there a custom? Is there a ritual that has several customs? If you wish, I invite you to put it in the comments section on my Selena Fox Updates Facebook live stream. And if you want to share it with me, but not in a public comment, you can contact me, Selena, at circlesanctuary.org. You can email me instead. Sacred stories about spring. What stories do you tell yourself about spring? What have been your experiences of spring through your lifetime thus far? When you call to mind springtime, what rises up in your consciousness? If you were to create a poem with words that you associate with spring, what would some of those words be? There are different creative ways of attuning to spring, of manifesting spring. Yes, it may be all around us, but part of the way of celebrating the seasons is being able to deepen our connection with the season itself, not only through nature observation, but giving yourself a chance to work internally with the power of springtime. Personal renewal. You may want to anoint yourself and do a spring blessing that way. Do you have a particular oil that you use as part of personal practice? Or if oils aren't your thing, taking some water, doing a self-blessing. I bless my mind with spring awareness. I bless my heart with spring awareness. I bless my hands with spring awareness. I bless my feet with spring awareness. There is so many different ways you can create a spring ritual. And spring rituals do not have to be long and complicated. Indeed, having a series of short rituals that you do with beading and enjoyment can really help boost your spirit and strengthen your connection with the greater circle of nature of which we are all part. New life spring forth, new life spring forth, new life spring forth, rise in me. New life spring forth, new life spring forth, new life spring forth, rise in me. New life spring forth, new life spring forth, new life spring forth, rise in me. So these are some of the spring rituals that have been important in my life over the years. And these are just the beginning of ways of being able to welcome in the spring. If you don't already have some kind of spiritual workbook, magical diary, grimoire, book of light and shadows, I suggest that you find a way of setting down some of the practices that you experiment with. Not only describing what you do, but sharing a bit about your process as you've done it and giving yourself some notes about what's worked for you and what you might do differently next time. Wherever you might be this springtime, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, take notes, because in 6 months you'll have a chance to welcome in the spring where you are. I invite you to take some time out, even if it's only like 10 minutes a day, and connect with some symbol of spring. Do an imagination connection if you need to. If you can, get out and be in the elements, breathing in the air, taking in the light of the day, or the magic of the stars and the moon at night, experiencing the beauty of the earth and the energy that's rising, connecting with breath and warmth and light, connecting with other beings, paying attention to where the sun rises each morning on the horizon and where it sets each evening. And you will notice changes as you move through the season. And of course, observing springtime and other life forms. You may notice migrating birds, creatures you haven't seen for months and months coming out of hibernation or passing through. And of course, being able to be with vegetation springing alive is powerful. And if you're in a place that's subtropical or tropical where you have life year-round, well, certainly one thing that you can do is notice the lengthening of the days. I am so thankful to be able to celebrate spring. And this springtime in 2021 marks the 50th anniversary of me doing public pagan rituals. So for me personally, this springtime is an opportunity not only to welcome in the spring as I do every year, and to enjoy the springtime as I do every year, but to reflect back to the springtime of my life during my time as a young adult, my maiden part of life, and recognizing, just like in a nesting doll, that maiden is within me, and we have spring within us no matter what time of life we are. I give thanks to the powers of earth and air and fire and water and spirit. I give thanks to the springtime. I give thanks to the divine as one and many. I give thanks to the springtime divinities. She who is known as Kori, Persephone, the maiden of spring, to the May Queen and May King, to the May Spirit, to the Jack in the Green Man, Dionysus, to Mother Earth in her many forms, to Ostara, to Florilia, to Flora, to Maya, who are all part of spring celebrations and amongst the ancient Romans and the Roman Reconstructionists today. I give thanks to the spring, I sing to the spring, and I give thanks to all of you who have joined in tonight. And a special thanks to David and Jeanette Ewing, who do engineering and our internet radio network management, and to Laura and Deborah and Casey, who also assist with CSNP. I give thanks to all of you who are Circle Sanctuary members, as well as those of you who are part of the networking that we do through our podcasting and our publications and our online events. For more information about Circle Sanctuary, you can find us on the web, circlesanctuary.org. And yes, we have more spring rituals coming up online. I will be doing an Earth Day celebration on Saturday, April 24th, and there'll be several speakers, and I'll be doing our annual Earth Day celebration. Yes, it'll all be online. You stream to the Circle Sanctuary YouTube channel, and we are having Beltane happening May 1st, a Saturday, and we have our flowering full moon circle in late April, and we'll have another full moon one in May as well. So I hope that you will have a wonderful springtime and do one or more rituals to connect you with the season and to bring some of that joy and new life, into your home, into your support network, into the world. Many blessings and happy spring.